Hello and welcome to Castlevale. This is the podcast which brings on brilliant guests to pitch their dream music festival. My name's Matt Hoss and I'm the host, and I'm here to guide you around their festival. Today is a live special. Today's guest is Edinburgh Fringe Comedy Award winner and BBC 5 Live DJ and all-round vibe legend. It's the one and only John Robbins.
Hi.
Hey.
Hey.
There we go. Hey.
Hi there. Hello, everyone.
How you doing today, John?
Pretty stressful day. A high voltage power line was severed in the area I live, leaving 1,000 homes without power for 5 hours and the internet. And I was explaining to my girlfriend what a stressful day that meant because I didn't have access to the internet. And she said, "Why didn't you just tether your phone to your laptop?" And I said, "Because I didn't think of that."
I'm very sorry to hear, but however, the way you described it not only was poetic, but it was also sounding a bit rock and roll, like high voltage power cut,
It's not rock and roll when you've got an 82-year-old neighbour without an electric oven, Matt.
Yeah.
It's also not rock and roll when you're having a rather heated exchange with the lady at Tesco customer services about what is and is not on the receipt of the item you're trying to exchange in emergency lighting only. They had to go to a special backup Tesco generator. Anyway, eventually she backed down.
Well, to be fair, that does sound like what could be in a new AC/DC record. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of vibe that it gives off for sure. But, well, I'm sorry you've had a stressful...
Well, I could have done with a little bit more AC/DC. That was the whole problem.
Yeah, fair enough. That's but welcome to Castlevale, John. It's an absolute privilege to have you. And so in this, we're going to be talking about music and festivals and stuff we enjoy. So the first question I always like to ask is, if someone wanted to ask you what kind of music are you into, how do you typically respond?
Well, ideally, I would sort of load up my iTunes and we begin a scrolling. I'm not on. I don't do Spotify. I have dabbled with it, but I was sort of, I had to mourn the end of the CD.
Yeah.
And I had a very treasured CD collection, but eventually, I got used to iTunes, and then I came to embrace play counts. I'm afraid I'm not quite ready to mourn iTunes yet.
Yeah.
And also, so I'm to the extent at which my computer's actually quite slow because I'm running the last OS that has iTunes on it.
The final bastion, yeah.
It's kind of mad digital nostalgia with iTunes because you can go back to a date because you can order your songs by last played. Mm-hmm. So you can sort of scroll back through time and find out what you were listening to on a day. I don't know, something bad happened.
She dumped me in this day. Let's check it out. Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually got a playlist from the end of a relationship in the late 2000s.
Yeah, I know in certain days where I've had very emotional days for end of relationships and stuff like that, and stick on Radiohead and let's see what happens as well. So is there any particular reason why you're not into the streaming atmosphere, or is it just the kind of, do you love the idea of play counts and that kind of thing?
Well, I would like to say it's because I want to have some kind of organic way of discovering music. I don't want to be sort of told what music I should listen to by an algorithm, but I don't think that's true. I think the actual truth is I can't be asked to like. Also, I sort of. When I joined Spotify once, it was like suddenly all my iTunes playlists were viewable by people, including said late 2000s breakup playlist. And it's like I have quite a lot of anxiety about stuff being in the sort of public domain. Like I've done barely any. I think this might even be the first online gig I've done apart from ones I've done with Ellis. Mm-hmm. And I just have this fear that I've somehow written my sort number and a account code on somewhere that there's like mum's maiden name and my long card number on my shelves. Quite a lot of anxiety. I'm actually quite anxious about that.
I was actually going to make a joke about like it's been Castlevale being a long con, but no, I feel like let's not add to the feel of your anxiety there. But no. Yeah, but I must say, like for people who are watching and if you're listening at home, there are your backdrop's absolutely wonderful. Like I don't want to tread on potentially talking about future topics, but you've got a lot of Queen in the background.
A lot of Queen memorabilia, some official, some unofficial, some homemade. And that really is and also some really nice stuff that people have sent in, like to the Radio X show, especially when we had lots of posts. So people like made little Freddy cards, and there's a picture there that a girl gave to me at a live gig of me dressed as Freddy standing in the sea.
Yeah. That's really... Sorry, the last part of that sentence just hit me at a certain point, but yeah.
I think I said something about just wanting to walk out into the sea, and she did me dressed as Freddy doing that. That's
a very poetic start to this podcast. You really do bring a lot of elegance to this as well. But to kind of dive deeper into your love of music and your the songs that you love, have you... What did you ever want to be a musician? Have you ever learned any instruments?
Yeah, I learnt the guitar and the electric guitar at school, and I was in a few bands with friends when I was a teenager, which was really fun. But I never got over sort of a real fear of playing in front of people and playing live. And also, I always found, like music theory, I just have a real blind spot in my brain for understanding how notes and chords interact with each other. So I got to a point where I could kind of copy stuff if it was written down for me in tablature quite well. And I even got grade 6 electric guitar somehow.
Yeah.
But I didn't have the understanding of music beyond, I would say, grade 1. So I have a little acoustic guitar here, but every time I pick it up, I just hate myself. So I put it back down again.
Yeah, absolutely, and but yeah, I think a lot of people do want to. A lot of comedians do like dabble with music beforehand as well. And is there what kind of music? Did you have a band name, or did you play any live gigs, or was the anxiety too much for you?
No, the band had several names. It began as the band that mistook their wife for a hat. Then it was, I think, for one gig we were called Eskimo Stone. And then we were called Rock, and eventually we were Koyana Skatsi, and we did 3 gigs under that name before we just went our separate ways. But we probably did like 6 live shows in all.
Yeah.
Oh, no, at a really low level.
I remember I had very few musical experiences, but I was in a band when I was in year 9 and year 10, and our first name was a Workstation Deviation, because we really wanted to stick it to the man, John. Do you know what I mean? Like, and then we did American Idiot, but only halfway through, because our drummer left halfway through the song. So like it was quite punk before we got punk, if you know what I mean. So yeah, it's and I also did a battle of the bands where I just screamed into the microphone because I saw a metal performer do it, and I thought, yeah, I'm pretty metal, but I do have to be at bed at 9 o'clock for school tomorrow. Do you know what I mean? But have you been to many music festivals outside of performing at them?
Yeah, well, I went to Reading Festival when I was a teenager twice, and I really enjoyed that. And then they used to have an annual free festival in Bristol called Ashton Court Festival, which sort of got in. It was the biggest free festival in Europe for a time. That was unmanageable, so they then had to charge, I think it was $5 a day.
Yeah.
And we used to go to that every year, and it was a big event because you couldn't stay over, so sort of Bristol decamped and just walked across the suspension bridge to Ashton Court Estate. And one year, and I have no memory of either set, but Portishead played on the Saturday and Massive Attack played on the Sunday.
Oh, that's strong.
No idea. I remember one year seeing some kind of very arty Captain Beefheart interpretation, but it wasn't. And I had too much cider and actually ran on stage and sort of. Oh God, such a shame memory. But committed a cider-fueled rant against how pretentious it was. I then climbed a very tall tree with my shoelaces undone, leading my girlfriend at the time to have a panic attack because I was about like 60 foot in the air in this massive tree. So that was great because you could kind of there was an end point to it. Whereas I think what I found stressful about Reading Festival when I would have been like 16 and 18 is sort of when does it end? Because you sort of come out of the main arena and then there's sort of this lawless period.
Yeah, there's certainly a Mad Max period, isn't there, where there's fiery tents and anarchy everywhere, absolutely.
Well, the first time I went, it was I can't remember which time was which, but the second time, I remember on the final day, it was the year that they just started setting fire to everything, and I just thought, this isn't really my scene. And then since then, my experience, apart from one Green Man, I went to, I think, the first or second Green Man Festival, and after that, everything's been going to festivals where I've performed, because obviously you miss a lot of the festivals, especially by doing Edinburgh. So I missed a lot of Green Man festivals that all my mates went to. But that experience has given me a deep, deep dislike for the admin of getting into a festival site.
Please, honestly, this is your time to shine. Please tell me more about the admin of getting to a festival. What do you dislike?
Oh, I now no longer do festivals because I find the process of getting from my car to backstage so infuriating because it's sort of like the logistics of it seem to be managed by a mixture of sort of high-vis sort of, I'm loath to use the term Jobsworth, but quite strict high-vis guys.
Yeah.
Sort of that older age Rotary Club kind of guy who just will not see any kind of common sense if you've got the wrong form or the wrong band. There's never a car park anywhere near it. And so you like, I'm performing at this festival. I need to be here. And they're like, oh, well, you have to park in the blue car park and then you have to go to the artist's liaison office. But that's at the green entrance and that's not near the box office. So you park in the blue car park and you go to the green bit and the artist liaison's there. But they say, oh, your wristbands are actually at the box office and that's at the purple entrance. And you're like, that tent there that's 10 feet away, that's where I need to be in an hour's time. Oh, sorry, you've only got a day pass. You need an artist's pass to get backstage behind the thing. And there was one occasion, I won't name the festival, where I called the person who'd booked me to perform and I said, it's taken me 45 minutes from arriving. I'm still no closer to getting in. If you don't come, and I'm not like a demanding performer, I was like, if you just don't come to the gate and get me in, I'm driving home because this is ridiculous.
Oh, bless.
And there's never any phone signal.
Yeah. You're so right.
So
right.
It's so much easier, bizarrely, to get into a festival if you just... There's some times where I've thought, I'll just buy a ticket to get in because it's going to be easier to get in through the main entrance.
Even if the fee is bigger than that, you're actually making a loss on it at that point.
Like another festival, which I also won't name. Like, they got parking by the tent, but they don't let you use it. So you have to park, then walk to the artist liaison office, then get like a very vague shuttle car, and then it takes you to the tent after half an hour, and you're like, but there's parking. Why couldn't... Oh, well, you have to have this pass to get the parking. You're like, oh, forget it.
And very, very aptly, we're going to move very quickly onto the next part of the podcast and talking about setting up camp and sorting out the admin for your own festival. Hello and welcome to the Season 4 Castlevale finale, or should I say, part 1 of 2. Yes, this episode is split into 2 episodes again, like the Felicity Ward specials at the start of the season. And thank you so much for joining us on this journey. It's a real pleasure to have you. If you do like this podcast, please give it a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you may get your podcasts from. Every review helps, and if you can do, please write a little message to go with that. If you wanted to get in touch with us directly, why don't you email us at castlevalepodcast@gmail.com. You can also follow us at Castlevale Podcast on Twitter for more updates and regular teasers. On top of that, why don't you follow me at Matt House Comedy on all the social medias, including Twitch, where I'm doing lots of broadcasting, and do subscribe to my YouTube channel, Matt House Comedy 2. Thank you for being here for such an amazing season, and we'll see you again very soon. Enjoy the rest of this part 1 with John Robbins. Castlevale, are you ready? Here we go! Get on your feet! If you know this one, sing along. And on top of that, Hannah Madison in the chat writes, I run a multi-venue inner-city festival in Newcastle, and I hate the admin. I'm so sorry I'm part of this problem. Yeah, shame on you, Hannah. Shame on you. So let's find out some basics behind your festival, John. So, what is the name of your festival?
Oh, it's called The Correct Realm.
Already a very tight, very on brand for John Robbins. The Correct Realm. Please tell me more.
Well, The Correct Realm is unfortunately going to make a massive loss as a festival because it's what I can only describe as a clearing in a wood. It's actually a 5,000 capacity clearing, but we're only going to sell 2,500 tickets.
Okay, yeah.
Because I really do like sort of places that are sort of half full.
Yes. Yeah.
I really like, there's a festival called The End of the Road.
Yes.
And I really like how that festival is, like they've got a main bit, but it's quite well thought out in terms of, there's lots of like little bits in woodland. So you go down to, there's a little comedy stage, like in the woods. And then you sort of follow fairy lights and there's a little bar in the woods. And then there's like the big main bit. But what I don't like is those huge sort of just dust bowl, you know, like 1,000 falafel shops in a big horseshoe shape. And it sort of takes so long to walk through. I quite like discovering little small spaces and how they've... And I think End of the Road has a sister festival run by the same people, which the name escapes me. I performed at both of them. And it's booked... the comedy is run by a comedian called Sarah Bonetto, and they're such nice festivals. No Direction Home, thank you very much.
Thank you.
They're so cool and chilled, and you never feel like you're sort of lost or rammed in. Well, you're lost, but in a nice way.
Yes. In
that you're lost between the fairy light rum bar and the comedy bit, but you don't feel sort of too exposed or hemmed in. So my festival, The Correct Realm, is always at half capacity. Even though it's in sort of quite remote woodland, it's got a massive 1,000 space car park right by the entrance. And the nearest train station is just a short cab ride away, and there are infinite cabs. And there is not one shuttle bus in sight, because I've never, ever seen a shuttle bus system at a festival that is anything other than complete guesswork.
Yeah. So it's the correct realm, and it's the correct way to sort it out as well. So I think there's lots of interesting things there to kind of develop in. Firstly, I love the ideas of your sponsors being like, John, you know you're going to make a loss at this festival. Don't you want to sell more tickets? And you're just like, nah.
It's going to be a profound loss. It's going to ruin pretty much everyone who backs the festival, but it will mean we have a much nicer time.
But we have saved money on the shuttle buses, so that's a positive, you know. But yeah, so where you said there's woodlands. Whereabouts geographically in the world is the festival held? I'm
going to say it's just south of the M4 corridor.
Lovely stuff.
So, in a real emergency, you could walk to Reading services in an hour. So I'm going to say it's 3.5 miles from Reading services. But you can't hear the traffic.
You know, in the history of doing this podcast, firstly, that's the most precise place we have. Because sometimes people just say, oh, in this vague area, we've gone 3 miles away from Reading services. And also, in this festival, we have unlimited stipulations. So you can kind of do whatever you want. And it's the first time I've heard, we can't hear traffic noises, which is genuinely, that's a thing at festivals, which you can definitely hear quite a lot as well. So this is truly the correct realm. So in terms of to kind of elaborate more on the fact that it's half capacity, I know you said you like the feeling of being lost, but how many people would you ideally like at the festival, and do you like it to be a bit more sparse and stuff like that? Do you kind of not enjoy the kind of crammed crowds?
Well, no, you want a vibe,
yeah,
but you don't want it to be too busy. There's nothing worse than like when there's not enough food stalls and you've just got like half-hour queues for food. So what I imagine in this clearing, which if you sort of see is like a sort of like a rectangle with a circular end, and the circular end is the stage.
Yeah.
Well, sort of as the trees begin, there are lots of bars in the trees.
Yeah.
Not like Go Ape, but
get a creeper hook and climb up. Yeah.
Sort of on the sort of transition from tree to clearing is just lined with bars, and some of them are pubs, like sort of Hobbit-like pubs, so you can go into them or you can sit outside of them, and each of them has a maximum capacity of about 50 inside. Yeah. And I have. Does the phrase "pizza conveyor belt" mean anything to you, Matt?
I have no idea. I'm sorry.
I've given some thought to a system of imagine a circular conveyor belt that goes through ovens at stages.
Yeah.
And before it gets there are little Subway sandwich style topping stations with pre-rolled out pizza bases. So basically at any point, at any stage in the festival, you can pop up to one of the conveyor belts. You can make your pizza at one of the stations. You pop it on the conveyor belt that then takes it through an oven, one of, I would say 12 ovens.
Yeah.
It takes about 5 minutes to get through the oven, and then the other side you pick up your pizza.
Lovely stuff.
So it's sort of constant rotating pizza availability.
You'd really describe my dream festival, pizza and like pubs and trees. It sounds very idyllic. It's nice. And one thing, I don't ask this for every guest, but I feel that this is a very important question to ask you. John, what is on the drafts? What beers, what alcohols have you got for your festival?
Great question. Guinness at a superb temperature. Sort of at Machuntleth Festival, I always tease the promoter because they have it's this insane selection of ales that always sells out about halfway through the second day. Yeah. But they've got like 30 different kegs behind the bar. I really like that. But I would have like sort of a selection of ales no stronger than 4.5%.
You've got to keep it session at the festival for sure.
Absolutely got to keep it session. It's also staffed by a huge contingent of undercover litter police. So I'm going to say about 10% of the festival attendees are undercover litter police, who are also fully qualified and trained police officers in the event of more serious crimes, but they're there mainly to control litter, which is a very simple. It's just an on-the-spot 20 quid fine, and if you there are cash machines on site. But the cash machines charge £2.50 to withdraw money, so it's a £22.50 fine in real terms. But obviously, they're also there to protect everyone against all infractions of law.
Wow. You know what? That's actually genuinely a great idea, and that also that bank fine from the extra £2.50. That's how you get the money back. That's how you make up your losses as well. And but yeah, I think that's really cool because genuinely a massive issue with a lot of festivals is the clear up afterwards. It's really ridiculous, and people have to volunteers have to go and spend the days clearing up, and it's really quite sad to see. And especially when a lot of festivals pride themselves on being environmentally friendly, and people just drop stuff on the floor. So I think a litter police would be very that would be very satisfying to watch in real time. In fact, that could be one that acts on the stage, just watching someone getting a fine for it. Whew, like a highlights package.
Yeah.
Brilliant
Yeah.
stuff.
So yeah, that's the sort of the main vibe focus. There are other little sort of clearings in the woodland for chill out zones, maybe a little cocktail bar in the forest. But it's all quite close together, and it all is sort of like a central hub, if you will, and it's all in view of the car park. So, you know, you look at that way and you're like, oh, this is beautiful, this is a magical realm. You go that way, the Fabia's okay. I can see it from here.
Absolutely. Brilliant stuff. And final question of this section is camping at your festival? Are you a fan of camping?
I sort of... I mean, I've camped as a youth. I was in Cubs, Scouts, Beavers, camped at festivals. I never had a good enough tent, so my tent always sort of... I remember one year the lining of my tent perished, and I woke up and I just had this like black plastic, like dots of plastic dust all over me, and I just couldn't... It was horrible.
Yeah.
Couldn't get them off. There is camping, but again... to pursue our loss-making policy, it's glamping, but it really we're not charging people too much, because some of the glamping costs now for like for a decent sort of tent for two people to stay in, you look at like £600 or £700 for a weekend, and I've seen them go up to like £3,000.
Yeah, absolutely. And
I am someone fascinated by the finances and logistics of putting on festivals. So every festival I ever go to, I always annoy the promoters, because I'm like, how much does that cost? How much do you rent that? Do you have to pay for storage for that? Are the security 24 hours? How much is the license? Are you getting money from the pizza van? So I love all that stuff. And let me tell you, putting on a festival is a ball ache, and it is phenomenally expensive.
I feel like every time you've asked those promoters for that, you've just been doing prep in anticipation of this podcast for years. Even before it even existed, you were like, you know what, let's do Castlevale prep. Yeah,
be like, what's Tim Key on for this? How much are you paying Key? Am I on at least half of Key? I say that so much to this one promoter. How much is Key getting?
Anyway, I think it's time to head to the main stage of your festival and learn which wonderful acts you are going to play.
About to drop some acid like I know I should, but I just remember that I left it in the club. I don't know how I'll get my high. I take a look around and know I sigh, but then my salvation, it comes through, cause I'm inhaling pure O2, cause I'm going into the oxygen tent, cause I'm going into the oxygen tent, yeah. That was actually quite disappointing.
Well, it's a 3-day festival. I should tell you.
Are you doing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, John?
Yes, doing Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. But there's a pre-lash day.
Yes. Hello. Tell me more.
My favourite bit of getting to Reading was always the first day when you set up on a Thursday.
Yeah.
So there's a pre-lash day on the Thursday, which is just sort of boozing in the bars. And for the pre-lash day, I've actually booked a classical pianist.
Yes.
Who is just playing in a corner of the woods. And I'm trying to get into more classical music, but I picked a pianist called Anna Fedorova.
Brilliant.
And she has got range, which is what I'm looking for, because I'm thinking a bit of Debussy. I'm thinking a little bit of Rachmaninoff when things get a bit more party time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking some Rimsky-Korsakov.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking a little bit of Mozart. So she is a very emotive pianist. So I'd like her, please, because I really like her version of Rachmaninoff's Third Concerto. So she's there on the pre-Lash day.
Mm-hmm.
And also, because all of the acts start from about 3:00,
Mm-hmm.
she can also play before the main stage opens each day. There's a bit of background music.
Oh, I love that. What you've done really well so far, and before even getting to the acts, you've really built a lovely atmosphere, and I think that you've really, you can sense that from your love of the End of the Road Festival, and like it's very charming, your festival, and it feels like it's a pair of hands here, John. And is there anything else you'd like to add for your pre-Lash day? And what's your nightlife like as well? Is it quite crazy, or is it toned down?
No, it's not crazy, but there's lots of little nooks in the woods. But bear in mind, the litter police are there. So no drug taking in the woods, because the litter police will be on you. So, every single inch of the festival is monitored by CCTV as well. Because I hate the idea of criminality. But also I hated that sense at Reading and Leeds that like someone is getting mugged right now. Yeah. Someone's tent is getting cut open and they're having all their stuff stolen. And, mm-hmm. They've bought one bottle of vodka to last them and their mates the whole weekend. And someone's just nicked it and they can't afford. Because when you're like 16, 17 going to festivals, I just remember like I just had so little money, mm-hmm. and it's so expensive. Like now, lucky enough to sort of have a bit of disposable income, so it doesn't matter if a pint's £6. I mean, I'll still go, oh, Jesus, but like it's fine. But the idea at Reading of drinking from the actual bar, mm-hmm. no way.
Yeah.
Were you ever able to afford that? Because they were like, at the time, it would have been like £3 or something a pint, but you were like, I can't have £3 a pint. So. Yeah, there's no illegality at the festival.
Absolutely. And if you did see someone partaking in any illegal substances, what would you, John Robbins, do to apprehend that person? I'm
obviously hooked up to all of the litter police with a little thing. I'd actually have one in my ear. Because I don't like it when those go off during bands.
Absolutely, yeah.
So I'd just be like, I have scented doob in the West Wood. Repeat, scented doob in the West Wood.
I also imagine that you've memorised like the whole of the festival as like a checkered grid. So like, all right, litter police move to C4, move to C4. There are doobies undertaking. Yeah. Let's move on to your first act of your Friday. After Anna played, who was the first act on after who's starting off your festival true and proper?
So day one, 3 p.m. is Neutral Milk Hotel.
Yes, please. That sounds wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, that's going to be superb. And the great thing about Neutral Milk Hotel is they're definitely going to play In the Aeroplane Over the Sea because they've only got 2 albums.
Yeah,
so absolutely. it would be pretty churlish of them not to play it.
Yeah, it'd be quite passive aggressive if anything. Yeah. But we're just going to play it. It's the first album called like Garden Head or something like that, or is it?
No, it's on Avery Island.
Avery Island, absolutely, yeah. And so tell us a little bit about Neutral Milk Hotel because obviously In the Aeroplane Over the Sea is a very iconic album. It's kind of a cult hit. And does that have any resonance to you? And why is it suitable to be the opening act of that weekend?
I've split the 3 days into 3 sort of musical eras for me.
Brilliant.
So day one is like, well, not strictly, but day one is sort of late 90s indie.
Nice.
Day 2 is sort of alt folk, and day 3 is big hitters. But I used to listen to In the Aeroplane Over the Sea when I drove from Bristol to Cardiff. So when I first started out, I'd do a weekly open mic night on a Sunday in Bristol, then next Sunday in Cardiff, then back to Bristol. And In the Aeroplane Over the Sea is pretty much exactly the time it takes to drive from Bristol to Cardiff.
And that's a special album when you find that thing that fits perfectly. And as a comedian, one of the best feelings in the world is coming home after the drive and the album ending perfectly at that point. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it's magical.
And I think like the albums that have stayed with me the most to perhaps the ones that the first time I heard them, I was like, what is this? What is this? I don't really get what this is. And In the Aeroplane Over the Sea was definitely one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And just these sort of... It's very hard in any art form to recreate the experience of dreams. But I think that In the Aeroplane Over the Sea is the best ever depiction of a dreamlike state. And whenever I'm reading a novel and the narrator starts to describe a dream, I immediately zone out and I just sort of can't be arsed. And I think it's sort of pointless to try, but especially something like O Comely or
Absolutely.
Two-Headed Boy.
Yeah.
I immediately feel like I'm having a dream, which is much better than feeling like you're hearing someone describe a dream.
Absolutely. And I absolutely agree with you as well. The first time I listened to it was on a train to York, and I'm just it's for an album which has a lot of hype, it's quite hard to kind of get that emotion. I'm not quite sure what it is, but now it feels it's very comforting to listen to it. And also talking more about the dream aspect of it as well. There's highs and lows, there's slower periods, there is surreal bits, but also I love the finality of it as well with Two-Headed Boy Part 2 and how it kind of loops back in the end. And in my dreams there's callbacks at the end, if you know what I mean. It's already structured, and yeah, it feels very special, that album.
Yeah, totally. It always feels like it's sort of zooming in and out of from sort of very mundane detail that sometimes can take on significance in a dream to much sort of bigger scale scenes.
Absolutely. Well, let's move on. Let's see who else you have on your Friday as well. And who else have you got after Neutral Milk Hotel?
So 4 o'clock, we've got Cass McCombs.
Hello, yes, Cass McCombs.
Who I've seen a few times now, and I've actually met a couple of times. In fact, I actually managed to wangle getting him on the 5 Live show.
Yes.
And he ain't a chatty guy. Right, don't like talking.
I gotta be honest, John. I've done, obviously with doing this, I've done research with. I did research into Cass McCombs, and I listened to that interview, and I wasn't gonna bring it up, but it was. Yeah, you can see. Well, I love it when you were trying to bring out some kind of. You were doing really amazingly as an interviewer, but it was yep. Yeah.
Oh, well, it was just there's no point. I mean, I would much rather someone's agent say, look, Cass is jet-lagged, so he really is very self-conscious, he's very shy, he doesn't really like talking about his music, he just wants to play the songs and go, and you go, absolutely fine. Mm-hmm. But don't just completely stonewall someone...
Yeah.
Trying to give you coverage that I was desperate to give him. And I had my best friend Robin then, who is an insane Cass McCombs fan, absolutely worships him. And you think, I know you hate this sort of thing. I know exactly what it's like. I know what it's like to get off a plane and be tired and then to have someone say where to get your ideas from. Yeah. But you sort of have, that person is doing their job and that person is trying to help and they're being kind, and so just make an effort. Or don't, or say no interview. That's fine. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But anyway, that memory aside, his live performances, oh my gee, so good, so tight.
And so what does Cass McCombs' music mean to you, and why is he playing at your specific festival? Well,
I came to him quite late, and I've listened to different albums of his at different times. So Wits End I was listening to in sort of 2017 when I met my now fiancée. So I have strong associations of being round at her first, the flat she had, listening to a song called That's That, which is just superb. Then there's a song called Medusa's Outhouse on his album Mangy Love, which is just one of the most heartbreaking songs I've ever heard in my entire life. But then he's got an album called Catacombs. I mean, all his albums are amazing. That's what's said. So there's a song called County Line and My Sister, My Spouse that I listened to in Edinburgh in 2011 when I was not having a very nice time. Walking through Cowgate listening to Cass McCombs was sort of the only real respite. So
blessed. And yeah.
So I really like Cass. Don't have to meet him in person at the festival, just He's not being paid for that. Just come and do your set, go home.
I tell you what, Cass, get on the shuttle bus home, mate. Come on. But brilliant, and it must be kind of hard meeting your heroes and not quite having that engagement. But let's see who else you have on as well, and who's after Cass McCombs.
So at 5 o'clock, it's Magnolia Electric Company.
Oh, hello, yes.
One of my all-time favourite bands, and this is the first musician we're going to have to resurrect because sadly Jason Molina died, lost a... Well, am I going to use the word battle? No, he was decimated by alcoholism, I think is the only real way to say it. There is an absolutely heartbreaking obituary of him written by a friend of his about his final years and how he struggled with booze. But I saw them, and it'll be one of my great... What's the opposite of a regret?
Kind of happy memory?
One of the things I'm gladdest I did was they played at Bush Hall in London in 2010, and I just didn't have anyone to go with, so I just drove there and from Bristol and went to watch them. And then very sadly 10 years later I went to watch the tribute show that the remaining band members did after he died, which was a very, very moving experience. And I was there, and I was at the merch table buying 2 T-shirts, and there was a comedian there behind me. It was oh sod, what's his name? Sean. God, this is embarrassing. Well, anyway, there was a comedian I like there.
It was Cass McCombs, and no, sorry.
A comedian I really like, whose name I'm now going to Google, because it's just gone completely out of my head. I don't think it even is Sean. Sorry, Sean, if you're listening, mate. I remember you. I'm terrible with names at the moment. Excuse me.
Yes, sorry.
But they're not dissimilar from Neutral Milk Hotel in many ways, but they've got a song called oh my God, John, your brain. Farewell Transmission.
Yeah.
Which is just one of the all-time best songs ever. But their best album, I think, was a box set called the Sojourner box set, which is just superb. So I would definitely have Magnolia Electric Company there.
Brilliant. And so how many other acts have you got on for your Friday, John?
3 more on Friday.
Brilliant.
So Magnolia Electric Company are followed by Car Seat Headrest.
Yes. Sorry, I get very some of the artists are sent to me beforehand. Some of them are not. That was a genuine reaction. Love Car Seat Headrest. Yes, mate.
So they're playing Teens of Denial. They're just, it's a flawless album, and I was introduced to them by a sort of a mixture of Matt Crosby and James Acaster, somehow between them, and I used songs from that album as the walk-in music and the walk-on music for The Darkness of Robins when I did that show. So that album always takes me back to being backstage in the Cabaret Bar in Edinburgh in a very, very special time for me. So and I saw them twice. I saw them at the Shepherd's Bush Empire, but the best ones I saw them at the Roundhouse. And everyone there was really young, like younger than me. And I was there with my girlfriend, and we were stood at the front, and they came on, and fuck, they're cool and young, the band, and like really gorgeous. And he just starts playing this song, and I'm thinking, I don't know this song. And he goes, bam, bam, bam. And I went, fuck, that's Waves of Fear by Lou Reed.
Yeah.
Like within 2 seconds of the start of this first chord he played on stage, I thought, that's Waves of Fear by Lou Reed. Everybody else is going, what's this? When he kicks in and actually says Waves of Fear, I just screamed. So I was like this old guy at a young rock concert, the only one there who knew anything about this quite obscure Lou Reed song, just losing my shit at the front of the crowd. And I was like, I cannot believe Car Seat Headrests are playing Waves of Fear by Lou Reed. This is just one of the coolest moments of my life. My girlfriend is sort of edging away from me. Sort of this gap appears around me in the audience. But it was just one of my favourite ever experiences of live music was hearing Car Seat Headrest play a Lou Reed song. I love it when my heroes are fans of my other heroes.
Yes, absolutely.
I find that I get quite emotional actually when I read an interview with Captain Beefheart where he talked about a Philip Larkin poem that's one of my favourite poems. I was like, how is Captain Beefheart, who lives in a van in the Mojave Desert, talking about my favourite Philip Larkin poem? And I loved when I read an interview with Frank Zappa where he talked about, he said something like, the interviewer said, what music are you listening to? And he said, oh, Brian May's the only person making anything interesting right now. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what? And then I read an interview with Brian May where he talked about really liking DVD audio CD of a Halloween concert that Frank Zappa put out, and I love those little connections. And when artists I like cover other artists I like, I that gives me a real buzz.
That's wonderful stuff. So who was on after Car Seat Headrest as well?
So after Car Seat Headrest we got Pulp.
Yes,
who were the first band I ever saw live.
Really?
At Birmingham NEC in 1996.
How old were you at the time?
14. Yeah, maybe it was 97. No, I think it was 96. Yeah, I've still got the T-shirt.
Yes.
I still wear it. Still fits.
That's amazing. And I've got, like, to my shame, I used to be a massive fan of Blink-182, but it's got, like, holes in it now, and, like, it's barely functioning as well. But, like, I say it's punk, and I just, like, kind of get on my day as well. But, is it starting to wear thin and stuff like that?
No, it's held up remarkably well. And I also saw them in Edinburgh it would have been 2000, so long before I was up there doing comedy. But I was up at the festival watching theatre and saw them play, and and that's another thing I'm really glad to have seen. But I think they fit in that bill really nicely. And then headlining day one is Godspeed You Black Emperor.
Yes.
I've sort of had to put on last because you can't really follow them.
Yeah.
And also it's going to be a really nice, intense vibe for when we're all sort of sat outside our bars once the revolving pizza conveyor belt's been shut down.
But yeah, we still got we're enjoying the music, but keeping an eye in the car park at all times as well. But so I think fans of yours will know Godspeed You Black Emperor. But like, if anyone here hasn't encountered them before, can you give them a little bit of a background? What do they mean to you?
Well, so Godspeed were one of the sort of trailblazers of the Montreal post-rock scene in the mid to late 2000s on a record label called Constellation, and it was quite an incestuous band scene, so lots of them played in lots of different bands. So there are sort of Godspeed related projects like A Silver Mount Zion and Fly Pan Am, and I first saw them at the Fleece in Bristol in 1997 or 8. I got a CD on the front cover of NME called Enemy Annual Probe Volume 2, I think. And it had Royal Trucks, Godspeed, Mercury Rev, Afghan Wigs.
Wow.
Elliott Smith. It was just this insane, like, free CD looking back on it. And there was a song on it called The Dead Flag Blues by Godspeed, which is this sort of voiceover of like a post-apocalyptic scene, which I'm aware is a contradiction in terms. A voiceover of an apocalyptic scene.
I'll re-edit that, yeah.
And it just begins, the car is on fire. And there's no driver at the wheel. And the cities are all empty with 1,000 lonely suicides and a cold wind blows, something like that. And I was just like, yeah, whatever this is, I'll have this for the rest of my life, please. And they brought out an EP called F Sharp, A Sharp, the first album was called F Sharp, A Sharp, Infinity.
Yeah.
And then they brought out an EP called Slow Riot for New Zero Canada. And it just absolutely blew me away. It's the most intense first listen I've ever had to any music in my life. A song called Moya from the Slow Riot EP. Mm-hmm. And it's basically like a sort of 9 to 12 piece rock instrumental orchestra. It's the only way I can really describe it, with sort of these 12-minute long build-ups and crescendos. And then an album called Lift Your Skinny Fists Like Antennas to Heaven is, I think, a complete, flawless masterpiece.
And the opening track of that, which I believe is Storm, it's like it's a musical experience like no other, because it as you say, it's like a musical crescendo, and it takes you places. And I found it kind of odd because it was far more emotive than I thought it would be, and I'm still trying to figure it out now, to be honest. Because like I was just sat in a room listening to it, and it does for. In my head, it was just, it's instrumental music, it builds up, but there's more than that. There's building blocks there, and there's there's a lot of nuance, and it felt like a journey for me.
It still feels, when I listen to it now, unlike anything else, even in terms of like unlike any other genre of music I'd ever heard. And even though there are lots of bands that, so like, I guess the more popular version is Explosions in the Sky, but they came a bit later, but that whole Montreal scene I found very interesting. And I was also listening to a lot of Mogwai at the time as well. So I got Young Team and F Sharp, A Sharp, Infinity the same year at sixth form, and I was just sort of gone into this world. So once you've heard it, you'll realise that you can't have someone on after them. I once saw them in a church in Bristol playing with Sigur Rós.
Yeah.
So Sigur Rós first and Godspeed second, and crikey Moses, what an experience that was, the Trinity Centre in Bristol.
And so when they're playing your festival, when Godspeed are playing, how are the theatrics? Are they doing a lot of stuff on stage, or is it quite flashy, or is it just quite minimalistic? What's the vibe?
No, they're very static as a band. So I've seen them maybe 3 or 4 times, but they play a lot of projections and sort of short films and looped videos, so that would be being projected on the trees, I think, probably. But you've got like a violinist, a cellist, 2 bassists, 3 guitarists, 2 drummers, all that kind of thing.
Brilliant stuff. And that's a perfect way to finish off your Friday. And it's a pretty intense day as well. There's a lot.
It is an intense day.
But tell you what, a lot of dreams will be made that day. And that is the end of part 1 with John Robbins. We'll be back with episode 40 and the season finale of this interview next week, where we'll see John Saturday and Sunday. Please support John by going onto his website, johnrobbins.com, and following him on social media at Nomadic Reverie. Do check out his BBC 5 live show as well as his podcast, How Do You Cope? There's lots of really great content on there. And thank you so much for listening. Join us next week for our final episode of this live special. And make sure to follow Castlevale Podcast on social media, and to follow me at My House Comedy on social media too. Give this podcast a 5-star rating, share it with your friends, and finally, please give a massive thank you. And join us next week for John Robbins.
Hey.